That's what World War II is about. Okay, let's start again. It was the war that changed the world. It made some countries turn against each other. It made other countries unite as one. Millions of people died, believing in their homeland's purpose. World War II had many major events, but the invasion of Poland, the Battle of Britain, Pearl Harbor, the Normandy invasion, and the Japanese bombings were all very significant. On September the 1st, 1939, at 4:45 a.m., the Germans invaded Poland. This event sparked one of the most horrific events in human history. After World War I, Germany had been blamed for the war, and it was in debt. A young Nazi Party member took lead of the country. Slowly, one of history's most hated villains roused up the Germans and suited them for war. The German leader, Adolf Hitler, claimed taking Poland was for more space for the Germans. This was his first step in expansion and a mass genocide. By the 8th of September, the Germans had almost reached the Polish capital, Warsaw. Poland surrendered its last operational unit on October 6, 1939. It had been a long, torturous month for the Polish, not only from the German attacks, but from its east, which was Russia. The Battle of Britain is one of the major events in the war. Both sides were fighting using their air forces. In fact, according to History.com, it was the first of its nature. After World War I, Germany had been banned from having an air force. The Soviets helped defy that, leading to a full-on attack on Britain. On July 10, 1940, it began sending civilians into hiding and soldiers into the air. The fighting continued until October 31, 1940. This ended in both sides' weakened, but it was Germany's first defeat in the war. If not for Pearl Harbor, the outcome of the war would have been very different. Pearl Harbor was a complete shock to the world. On December 7, 1941, a well-strategized attack from the Japanese sent an isolated America into war. Japan had controlled most of the Pacific and wanted to expand into southern Asia. They saw the opportunity to destroy one of America's naval bases. America believed that one of their bases closer to Japan would have been attacked. Japan and Hawaii are about 4,000 miles apart. Pearl Harbor was therefore poorly defended. The surprise attack took place early in the morning with the Japanese blowing up the American naval fleet. As Roosevelt said in his famous speech, it is a date which will live in infamy. After staying out of the war for so long, America entered World War II. 3 years later, on June 6, 1944, the Allied forces began their invasion on Europe and of the German regime. With the help of Patton and a fake army, they staged a false invasion plan so that Hitler's army would have been stronger near Calais, France, and weaker near Normandy. The Battle of Normandy, also referred to as D-Day, took many years to plan. With the American, Canadian, and British armies, it became one of the most successful invasions in history. Submarines stormed the beaches of Normandy early that morning. The Germans were outnumbered, only having 50,000, and the Allied forces having 156,000. Many soldiers did not make it to shore due to mine bombs set by the Germans and rough seas. D-Day was a turning point for the war. Less than a year later, on May 7, 1945, the Germans surrendered. The war had not ended yet. The power in the East still stood strong. On August 6, 1945, America sent a plane that carried the most horrific weapon the world had ever seen. That morning at 8:15 a.m., an atomic bomb was released on Hiroshima, Japan. 90% of the population died immediately. Estimated numbers were around 80,000 people and more dying of radiation days later. The Japanese still refused to surrender. On August 9th, the second bomb was released at 11:02 at Nagasaki. This bomb was massively stronger than the first. A third bomb was meant to strike Japan's capital. However, the Emperor of Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki officially ended World War II. This war will forever live on in history as the war that made people want to live. The brave soldiers in these battles made it so that we could live today. World War II will never be forgotten and hopefully never repeated.